Hello everyone, my name is Morgan Clark, and for my refutation speech, I'm responding to the claim that is the complete legalization of marijuana will cause more harm than good to society. My opponent's secondary claims are the legalization of marijuana will lead to many problems for the youth and students. The second one is the legalization of marijuana for recreational use is detrimental to society and will lead to more harm than good. And the third is the act of smoking cannabis in order to deliver the therapeutic elements into the body causes health problems, so better methods of dose standardization through pharmacological research is a more promising alternative. Although this speech was well structured, the evidence does not sufficiently support the claim. For his first claim, the legalization of marijuana will lead to many problems with youth and students. One of his pieces of evidence is among 15,168 adolescents in high school that smoke marijuana have a high school dropout rate of 13%. Although this is his evidence, it is a flaw because it is out of date. This statistic was dated back nearly 20 years ago, between 1997 and 1998. And a more recent finding, I found that according to an article by the National Center of Education Statistics from 2006 to 2012, monthly marijuana use among high school seniors increased by more than 4 percentage points from 18.3% to 22.9%. And if indeed marijuana was this educational catastrophe that opponents predict, then you would expect to see downward pressure on national graduation rates among kids that took up this habit. But in actuality, the opposite happened. Over the same period of time, as kids were smoking more, the graduation rate jumped up 8 percentage points. Another study done by this organization at a state level was there was really no correlation between high school graduation rates and the monthly use of marijuana in high school seniors. So that just contradicts his evidence for that claim. The second claim is the legalization of marijuana for recreational use is detrimental to society and will lead to more harm than good. In this claim, he does a lot of paraphrasing and assumptions, which I feel weakens the argument. And he also states that after 3 years of marijuana being legalized in Colorado, there was a 46% increase in marijuana-related emergency room visits. In this same article that he quoted from Rocky Mountain High Intense Drug Trafficking Area, there's a definition for marijuana related, which means data that could be obtained from lab tests, self-admitted, or from forms validated by physicians, but does not necessarily prove that marijuana was the cause of emergency admission or hospitalization. So basically it means that someone could be smoking weed in the morning and then later in the afternoon break their arm, but that's not the reason that they were admitted to the emergency room. Also, he states that there's a 10% increase in marijuana-related traffic deaths from 2009 to 2014. According to American Automobile Association, the team found that prior to the legalization of marijuana, 8.3% of drivers involved in fatal crashes had THC in their blood. But after the legalization, it was 17% of drivers had THC in their blood. In this same study, of that 17%, about 2/3 also had other drugs and alcohol in their system, so the study can't prove that marijuana was the main cause of the crashes. For his third claim, the act of smoking cannabis in order to deliver therapeutic elements into the body causes health problems. The only real evidence he has here is stated from the American Lung Health Association, which claims that it has a negative effect on your lungs, which is true, but all his other evidence that I found was basically like his own opinion, and there was no really citation. It was all like paraphrased. I even tried like Googling some of his evidence and nothing came up, so it was hard to find like the citation for that. And it doesn't really justify how it correlates with the legalization of marijuana, just justifies that it can damage your lungs. So in conclusion, although my opponent had a well-structured speech, his evidence doesn't sufficiently support his claim. Thank you.
It does actually prove that those wrongers might be.
Right? First thing that I was like,
They're probably for sure.
I think
My dad.
Well done.
All right, Morgan, organizationally everything is fine. Both at the beginning, at the end, it's nice that you kind of compliment him on his organization, that sort of thing. That's an evaluation, not a refutation. So you don't need to do that.
Okay.
Although nobody's going to, fault you for it. You're being polite, and people, I'm sure, would appreciate that. It's Octavio's speech, right? I'm sure he's sitting over there going, "Well, good, I did a good job." So it's nice to have that. But then I think you want to go after the arguments a little bit more forcefully. I thought that you did a good job on that first point, especially when you talked about the impact on youth, and you say, look, his evidence is out of date. The source that he cites is 1997 to 1998, which is almost 20 years ago, and we don't have any more recent information on this from the advocate's point of view. You would think that we would have seen some changes, but as of 10 years ago, here's what the outcome really has been. We had a 4% increase in marijuana use, but we've had an 8% increase in graduation rates. So the premise of his argument seems to be exactly contradicted by the statistics from 10 years ago, contrary to what he's referring to 20 years ago. I think that's a good argument. You've got good information on your particular point. It responds exactly to the position that he's taking, and I thought that worked really well. And your analysis on that is pretty good. There's also a challenge to his other data on this. You had kind of a generic quote about this. That this high schools don't see that this is an impact on the students succeeding or anything like that. I think you need to have a little bit more data for that quote. It seems like it's just a very vague piece of information on that. And the source, if the source is a credible source, then you ought to be able to give us a little bit more. If we're going to trust this as an authority, maybe you need to give us a little bit more background on it. And where they got this impression, I don't know. Like I said, I thought the first part of your argument was definitely the strong part on that particular issue. All right, on the second point, where you're talking about a lot of assumptions in the argument, this is basically a cause-effect dispute. You're challenging the causality of his claims, and I think that you've got the right presses here. You've got information that suggests that there are multiple drugs involved in some of the things that are going on in Colorado, and you've got the argument that suggests, why emergency room admissions might be a little bit problematic for making that argument. I think both of those are very reasonable challenges. The first one you've got evidence on. The second one, I think, is a little bit of an odd way of looking at this because, if I broke my arm at the later of the day and I'd used marijuana earlier, there's no demonstration there's a relationship between those points. But that there's been a 46% increase in the number of the people who have marijuana in their systems in those sorts of things. I think that's kind of the inference that he's making, is that that's a reason that those sorts of things are happening. I like your first argument a little bit better, that included the data that suggested, I guess it's the later data on the automobile accidents that they also had other drugs involved in their systems and that sort of thing. So I thought that kind of clouds the issue of causality there, and I thought that was a pretty direct and straightforward issue. On the third point, I think you've got a reasonable press here. I'm not exactly sure the first thing I think I might have said is that I'm not sure it's relevant for legalization of recreational use when we're talking about delivery of medical materials here. It seems like they are different issues, and so maybe this point is not relevant to the claim that he is presenting. It's maybe an issue that's a side issue. Your argument basically comes down to, well, okay, it's a lung irritant, but there's no sense that there's any particular harm. It's not necessarily linked to legalization. Those are reasonable presses. I don't know what he gets if he is correct on that argument, and I don't know what you get if you're correct on that argument. I don't know how how I would assess those 2 points. And I think that's one of the things that you want to do at the end, is always explain why the position you're taking is the one that we ought to be listening to. Could be a little bit stronger. And then, like I said, I thought the summary was fine, although, again, the compliment about his performance is not necessary. But, it's okay to be nice. It's okay to be nice. Did anybody see the